Hey, I'm Max. I'm joined today by Jeff Lerner at Misnomer, a fractional CMO service. Jeff comes into early stage companies and he brings a network of strategic advisors who are able to help those early stage companies get their first marketing and go-to-market efforts, across the line. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about Misnomer?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Max. So, kind of like you said, one of the things that we hear often from clients is, especially in the startup space, is we've been able to achieve X amount of dollars of revenue success in really having a sales team, making a lot of phone calls, really pushing that outbound, effort from a sales org. But there's a plateau. And so what we do is we come in and by we, it's really myself and, some of the strategic partners that I have in certain areas come in and really do a brand assessment. What is it about this product or service that is differentiated? What is our go-to-market strategy that will really help drive, the acquisition of new customers and clients? And essentially build the foundation for that startup so that it can be more successful in finding new business opportunities, finding new customers, and really expanding their offering in a way that their current organizational setup might not have really tapped into yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it too, and in my own practice, outbound is always like the first channel that you work for. But it's really important to make that next leap before your efficiency and your outbound efficiency starts to decay. And also, when you're a founder-led organization, it's just a completely different thing.
Without a doubt.
So what kind of companies are you typically working with? Like what do they look like?
Yeah, so for the most part, like I said, early stage startups, those that have yet to really sit down and answer the question of why they do what they do or why their product or service is different compared to the market. They've also probably, if you ask all of their employees or then ask their customers to describe that company in one or two words, probably don't even have a good answer to that yet because they just haven't focused on those areas. As like you said, early stage startups are focused on that outbound effort to try to almost prove the product market fit. I do a lot of work in the B2B space simply because that's the area where it's both creating that connection with the individual on the other side of the business, but also building a brand that connects businesses to other businesses to drive efficiency across various different industries.
So are there particular industries that you specialize in and that you're focused on supporting?
I never thought I would be specialized in freight and logistics, although having worked full-time for a logistics company for a few years in the freight tech space and now having an opportunity as a fractional CMO to partner with a few other ones, it just seems to be by default like an area that, I'm known for. I can't say I ever thought in my life that I would be a quote-unquote logistics guy or a freight guy. But I speak the language, right? So I understand the terminology, I understand the pain points. So, I think that gives me, a certain purview of that industry that others just may not have to the same extent. But really anything on the tech side, anything that's really in that B2B, I hate to use the word disruptor because every company claims or wants to be a disruptor, but any tech company in the B2B space that is really looking to solve some sort of inefficiency or, lend tech solutions to improving process, things of that nature would definitely be within my wheelhouse.
So we've got these B2B logistics companies and other B2B tech companies, and they've been using basically an outbound sales process in order to get their first business. About where do they see that start to stall out? What makes them start to think, gee, we need new channels?
Yeah, I think for all of them, that kind of realization comes at a different point. Usually, ideally, hopefully, it happens early on when there's, a handful of salespeople who are having some level of success, but are recognizing that wow, if we had a marketing team in place, if we had a cohesive brand strategy, if we had the proper pitch decks and communication, if we had a content strategy that really spoke to our audience, if they even know who their audience is, right? Then hopefully those are the earlier stage organizations that kind of get it and want to invest in their marketing from an earlier date. But there are some others that are kind of like a Series A even, or, they've raised some good amount of funding and they're waiting till they have that money in the bank before they go about doing an investment on the marketing side. And, in those cases, there typically may be like a 1 or 2 person marketing team in place that tends to be on the more junior executional side of things. And they just haven't invested in that overarching strategic view of marketing and brand. So it kind of varies across the board. And in a lot of ways, it's who's the founder? What is their perception of marketing? What is their belief in what marketing can and cannot do to help an organization? I've worked with some great founders who believed in it from day one and said, hey, we're never going to go anywhere unless we have marketing in place. And then others who were kind of like, I think we could get by without marketing for as long as humanly possible, and that should be the last expense we ever have.
Elon Musk model.
In hindsight, they might disagree with that sentiment now, but it also a lot of times, because like you said, founder-run organizations, it's the mindset of the founder that will determine the when.
So if we're going into those early stage sales teams, who are out in the field, they're talking to customers, they're building lists, they're reaching out to people, they're having conversations, and they're hopefully closing deals. What are they seeing and what are they experiencing that makes them think, gee, we need marketing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. One of the things that every salesperson I've ever spoken to, and I used to be a salesperson back earlier in my career, so I certainly get this. They want to spend their time closing deals. That's how they're getting compensated. That's what success looks like for them. So what are the things that they're doing without a marketing team in place that are taking away from their ability to close deals? And first and foremost is developing personas and the ICP. Who is the ideal customer that they should be going after? Part of that with the persona development is what are the pain points that we could potentially solve for that particular prospect that would warrant getting the phone call, pitching the business, doing a demo, whatever the outcome may be. So there's a lot of this behind the scenes legwork that, if done properly and done well, equips a sales team to know where they should be spending their time and allow them to actually spend their time on calls and sales pitches rather than making 100 phone calls a day trying to convince someone to take that pitch call when that individual may not even be the ideal customer. So it's kind of that balance, not to mention we all do it. Part of it, our world now is you talk to a sales rep, you're going to go to the website of the company that's pitching you to explore more information. And if marketing hasn't been involved and the website is, let's just say, not built for, acquisition, then you're going to have disjointed messaging from what the sales rep may be saying to what a website may be saying. And that's where a vast majority of deals will just fall apart. And so this is where the marketing team comes in. Is our salesperson, are they speaking the same language that our pitch deck says, that our website says, that when the CEO and founder is on a podcast just like this one, that they're saying as well? Because that cohesive messaging is really what will move the needle in terms of the ability to close deals.
I think every founder has experienced this. You see something on Twitter or social media that looks like somebody, you think that you could help, screaming out for help, and you believe that your solution is a perfect fit for it. And you reach out to them and you say, hey, I'm doing that. I'm building that. I want to talk with you. And then they respond, hey, I looked at your website. I don't know what you're doing. This does not look relevant to me. I don't think that this is a fit. And then you're having, from day one, you're underwater with that prospect. You've got to climb a hill just to get to sea level there.
And in that case, you're assuming that they even respond, telling you that they've been on your website, and it's, doesn't seem like it makes sense. In most cases, again, speaking for me and what I've seen and the testing I've done, They go to the website, they get this experience that is not ideal, that does not give that prospect any sense of this is the right fit for me, and they just leave, and you never hear from them again. And there's that old expression of you only get one chance to make that first impression. Well, yeah, I mean, it's true with your website as well. If your website looks like a disjointed mess, then how would you expect any client or prospect to think of your organization as a solution for anything when they can't solve their own, essentially their own online brochure? So those are certainly the challenges that I bring to, founders and say, hey, look, this is an opportunity to right this wrong, because it will help you get more of the meetings and the conversations that you want.
So when we're thinking about these engagements with the clients, what does like your process look like as a fractional CMO? What does like that first 90 days, how do you get that team aligned? Where do you start?
Yeah, for the most part, it starts with like a brand analysis and putting together an evaluation of both where they are currently, but also where they want to go. So most of my engagements with my clients are developing personas so that we know, okay, who is the audience that we're actually going after? And then with that, what is our marketing strategy? And that boils down to messaging and cohesiveness across the board. I basically spend that first, call it 60, 90 days doing what I call foundational marketing. It's not the things you see out in the world. So again, like, somebody walks into your house, they're going to say, and I've used this analogy a ton, it's, served me well when making this analogy. People walk into your house, they may say, wow, you have beautiful windows. What a great kitchen you have. I love the paint color on your walls. Those are the things that they see. They don't walk in your house and say, wow, you got a really great, strong concrete slab under here that I'm sure will hold your house up for years to come. They don't do that because you don't see it, and it's not part of the aesthetic. It's the same with marketing. The ads you put out there, the social media content, your video creation. You want to do a Super Bowl ad? Great, do a Super Bowl ad. Like, those are the things that people see and comment on and recognize. But if you don't have a foundation in place, meaning a mission statement, a vision statement, personas, an ICP, a true understanding of a differentiation, competitive analysis, then all of the other things that you're doing, the things that people do see, could come crumbling down at any moment. You don't want to build the second story of your house if your foundation underneath the first story is suspect. And so that's what I really instill in my clients is, let's focus on that foundation so that everything we do moving forward has that solid, base in which we can build upon.
So when we're thinking about this foundational work, one thing that I see doing fractional product work is that it can be hard to hold the coalition together, to get you across the line, because the results are relatively far into the horizon, right? Like you're saying 60, 90 days of investing in stuff before you get that first, warm lead off of your marketing content. How are you communicating internally? What are your strategies for building relationships inside of those clients and holding them to the finish line?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Every founder I've ever spoken to asks the question of, well, what's the ROI I'm getting from this? What is the ROI on investing in you, Jeff, and your company? And it's both one of my favorite questions because there's ways to answer it, and there's certainly, I have a belief system that I think serves me well. At the same time, it's also the one question that gets my heart pumping a little bit because it's a challenging subject from a marketing perspective. I think for me, the most important thing is setting clear expectations from day one. And that's why when I do any sort of agreement or partnership with a new client, I put together a project plan. What are the deliverables that are going to be taking place? What are the expected timelines in which they will be delivered? What are the outcomes that we're hoping for? Anywhere and everywhere I can, there are KPIs and other metrics that we're going to include so that we can measure and track the success of what we're doing together. I never want to enter any sort of partnership where there is not a very clear and measurable way in which my success will be judged. Kind of like on design work, where sometimes, somebody will be like, well, I don't like this. And you say, well, why don't you like that design? I don't know. I just don't like it. Well, that's really hard information and hard, that's not good feedback to help make it better, right? So I never want someone to look at 30, 60, 90 days down the line of our partnership and be like, I don't think we're getting enough from marketing. And I said, well, why aren't you getting enough? Well, I just don't think we're getting enough. Well, I don't love, let me rephrase. I hate ambiguity, right? I want to have something to point to and say, hey, look, these are the KPIs, the metrics we had gone through. Here's where we're tracking against them. And so everything we're doing is on track or, exceeding expectations. If there's something that's challenging or standing in our way, we communicate that. And so that's why I like the question, because I've been able to overcome it in a way that my clients appreciate, and that I've never had that ambiguity of, well, I don't think we're getting enough, when I can actually point to the metrics and the KPIs that we had agreed to. And so I think that's self-serving in a lot of ways for me, is to understand that and to communicate that from the very beginning.
So with that in mind, when we have prospects come in, there's some sort of transformation that we're trying to guide them through, and we're trying to help them navigate. In my case, it's usually, overruns in engineering costs, slow turnaround, requirements being bad, just like a lot of stuff around that. What transformation are you trying to guide customers through?
Yeah, it's everything from, the common reason, or one of the more common reasons that I, get referred and have these partnerships, is when someone comes to me and says like, hey, we're kind of hitting a wall. We're not growing as fast as we once were. We're seeing competitors doing things that are impacting our ability to generate leads and sales. Essentially, like, how do we build our name in a probably crowded marketplace? And that's my sweet spot, right? Like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that brand analysis. I want to think about ways we can build the brand to succeed in a crowded space by differentiating and creating amazing content, so that when prospects hear the name or see the name or visit the website, they have an experience that speaks to them as an individual. And so that's probably the first, reason why my clients reach out to me. And the other one is, we've had a marketing team, we've grown, we've done a lot of things, but we're kind of also at this stage where our growth has slowed considerably. Marketing once was a driver of a bunch of success, and now it's kind of taken a little bit of a slowdown. Obviously, every day the world of marketing evolves, as it does across technology and everything in your space as well. In those cases, it's how can I even lead their internal marketing teams to help brainstorm new ideas, come up with some different strategies to kind of break through, those stale moments, and get their teams back on track. And so those engagements are a little bit less on the brand development side and more on the strategic go-to-market, what are ways in which we can kind of jumpstart some of that growth that those small businesses were expecting.
And when we're talking about channel development and growth, all of these things, one thing that a lot of people are seeing, and I'm seeing, just the increased cost of breaking through. Everything from the performance of programmatic SEO starting to decline because of the introduction of like ChatGPT, to increased costs on advertising channels and just increased cost of capital generally. How are you guiding logistics companies through this environment?
Yeah, I certainly think that fractionals are going to continue to grow as a workforce. Yes, that's self-serving. Yes, that's, I hope that to be true because that serves me well. But anytime I've had a conversation with somebody who's on the fence about whether they want a full-time employee or a fractional executive such as myself, and we talk about the costs associated with full-time employees, the insurance, the benefits, all that comes along with that, versus someone like myself who can dedicate a certain percentage of my time at a much lower cost. When you look at that all-in engagement, that also frees up additional budget for the increased cost of advertising or onboarding of additional partnerships. And so I think there's ways in which the world is changing from that perspective. I advise my clients, hey, you don't need to have a 8, 10, 15 person marketing team yet. At the same time, take what you would have spent on your 3 full-time marketing hires and invest in myself, a few of the partnerships that I have with specialists in a couple of key areas. And instead of 3 full-time hires, you can get the strategic expertise of 8 individuals for that same amount of budget. And I think that goes a long way in solving some of those cost issues. At the same time, tech and ChatGPT and Bard and all these, the different AI out there, there's pros and cons. And I think we could probably spend hours talking about that on another version of this. My good partner who I've worked with for a long time in the SEO front will be a very vocal, hey, don't use AI for your SEO, because if you're using it and everyone else is using it, like you're kind of letting a machine dictate your SEO, which is not necessarily in the best interest of you creating your uniqueness online. At the same time, I will tell you, I use it to help me write blog articles and content for some of my clients. Now, of course, I edit it and add like the personal touches and change some tone and whatever. But if I want to write about a topic that has a bunch of factual information, if I was writing about the impact of supply chain on climate change, well, yes, I can have, ChatGPT write a bulk of it, and then I do the editing, which saves me a boatload of time. And it becomes, I would say 75% unique content of my own writing, but I'm using some of the factual bullet points of AI included. And so there is a happy marriage in there, and I still think we're trying to figure out what that looks like.
It definitely solves the blank page problem.
Yes.
Right? Which is another place where being fractional is really helpful. Now that like a bulk of that, beginning work, starting work, is getting automated away, what gets left is the strategic decision making. And I see this in my day to day. You could have a team of 20 engineers or, a team of 20 engineers who are expedited by AI. And you could build every idea that everybody on the team has, and you could build it in the least efficient way possible. Or you could really think about, you could have a strategy about what you're going to build and build 1 or 2 things and the most minimal version of those 1 or 2 things and see what kind of traction you get off of them. Same with any kind of marketing strategy, right? You could have somebody putting out 20 pieces of social media content every day that gets no engagement, or you could actually have that, marketing funnel thought through and have that one content piece and one content funnel that actually delivers results.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it, right? Like it's not about volume. It's quality, it's engagement. It's what will help the brand move forward and gain traction amongst the ICP. And it's not inundating somebody over and over again with meaningless content written by AI. Like that's just not going to do it. It has to be quality content, engaging content that is written by a human who understands and appreciates the pain points that other humans are going through, because that's how we're offering solutions. AI, I hate to say AI doesn't know, but AI may know because it's smarter than I am. But AI probably doesn't have the same appreciation for, in this case, logistics, for a shipping manager at a company that's trying to get out a whole bunch of different shipments going all over the country that all have to get picked up today from the loading dock to make room for all the other freight that's coming in. Like AI doesn't get that. They could offer solutions like the broad solutions of here's how to manage a loading dock, but they don't get the pain or the stress that the individual responsible for that feels. And that's where marketing teams come in. We get it. We have empathy, and that's how we build really creative solutions.
So looking forward at the next 3 or 4 quarters, what themes are you seeing either in the logistics space or in early stage companies?
Yeah, I do think that the Silicon Valley Bank issue kind of startled a lot of early stage startups, right? The access to capital, has become a little bit more challenging. Therefore, startups are being considerably more cautious with their spending. And in a lot of cases, I would say rightfully so. We've seen well-funded startups crumble because they've blown through their capital in ways that just didn't make sense, whether it be on overspending on office locations or investments that didn't pan out. I'm hopeful that some of the challenges that have been faced as a result of the bank challenges are starting to work themselves out, but I think that also lends the world of fractionals in a greater light. As I said before, why invest considerable amount of the budget or the runway that a startup might have in building a full-time team when there are many hundreds, thousands capable contractors, freelancers, fractional executives who can help build some of those solutions and get the organization on the right path, whether it's 6 months or a year down the road, then make the decision to go about hiring more full-time. So I think that's what the next few quarters really look like. It's continuously having these conversations with founders who are looking to hopefully invest in their marketing programs while simultaneously understanding the value proposition of what fractionals can bring to the table.
And what challenges are you seeing inside of the firms that you're supporting currently? What do you think they're struggling with the most right now?
I think they're all facing different challenges. Like I said, from the one hand, their challenge could be financial, where they were expecting to raise a Series A over the last 6 months, and that obviously hasn't happened. And that may not happen for another 6 months because the market has changed the timing of when a Series A realistically makes sense. And B, I think there's also, certainly in the logistics space, there's some headwinds as it relates to the way the market is. And so there's, it's not the most conducive market for expansion in a lot of cases. Now, I would argue that also gives ripe opportunity for new technologies, better solutions to jump in and take market share when the market is kind of flipped upside down and things are challenging. And so that's my pitch to those founders is, now's the time to jump in and to invest in your marketing, because now is the time where your message might resonate more so than when everything's going well. No one needs a new solution. And so, there are both obstacles and opportunities.
Absolutely. We're seeing struggle with net dollar retention, decays in growth rate. And when that happens, you don't want to be the hulking behemoth with a P&L weighted down by massive teams, organizations, and who needs the current way to continue, right?
Exactly.
Because that's what funds them. You want to be the scrappy startup. You want to be the guys who are lightweight and able to move fast and react and respond to the emerging conditions.
That's exactly right. I had a conversation recently with a founder, and he asked me, he's like, well, in the absence of a full-blown marketing team, how do we execute on some of these strategies? And I said, well, that's where I come in, and that's where I roll up my sleeves and I get dirty, because that's what a fractional does in supporting a small organization. You need a blog written? Great, I'll write it. You need a design, mocked up, like, okay, I'll do that. Because scrappy is the way to go when you're talking about early stage startups that don't have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. And that's what you get from that investment in a fractional or freelance partnership that aligns with your business needs. It's not just the strategy, it's also somebody who has the experience of taking that strategy and starting to build upon that execution. And once that gets proven out, then I have an argument where I can go back to that founder and say, hey, I think now's the time that you hire a full-time designer or a full-time content writer, because we've proven out the value. Now we really just need to focus on it as a core piece of your business and take it off of my plate because I am not the quote unquote expert in that area. And so those are the conversations that are happening now, which I think are healthy ones. And I hope continue with fractionals and freelancers that promote themselves in that way.
So now shifting a little bit, talk more about fractionals and to that audience. What's like the biggest learning that you've had in the year and a half, 2 years that you've been more on this fractional side of things? What's like your biggest learning in terms of running a practice?
I think for me, I went into this with this idea that there are countless others like me, and it will be a to the death fight for business, where everyone's competing against everyone else. And what I've learned hands down is that this community is so supportive. I have had multiple conversations with other fractionals, agency owners, people who even do almost the exact same thing I do, and we actually collaborate on projects, or we discuss some of the challenges or brainstorm solutions. I have a network of people that I can call if I'm kind of in this, odd space where I just can't seem to overcome something or something I haven't seen before. I can reach out to other people that I know and get their perspective and have them weigh in, even though they are technically a competitor of mine, right? Like they would love to have the business that I have and I would love to have theirs, but it's not cutthroat. It's not damaging and anything. And in fact, it's a very supportive community. And that was something I was not expecting at all.
So for people listening, where can they find you if they want to get in touch with you, Jeff?
Yeah, they can certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit the website, misnomer.co, or you drop me an email, jeff@misnomer.co, and I'd be happy to collaborate, hop on a call, and explore any possible synergies.
Thank you so much for your time, Jeff. It was really great speaking with you.
Max, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.